Well, hello there. Zach Henderson here, and I am on the line today with Sarah Polacco. Sarah, how's it going?
It's going good, Zach. It's nice to be here with you. Be here.
Absolutely. Yes. In the box,
In the
in the digital
box.
box.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
much as we can be with any other person.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at this point, which again, it's funny. We're now essentially a year into this accelerated digital revolution, Zoom society, if you will.
Right.
And yeah, it's been a wild ride. So
It really has been.
yeah, yeah. I mean, especially for us who are kind of tasked with helping people move in real life. There's certainly lots of pros and cons with the whole online thing. Um, and one of the big pros is that it gives folks like you and me an easy and good excuse to check in, and
hmm
that's really one of the blessings that I have um, really been enjoying over the last year, is just having that you know kind of coffee meeting mentality of just whipping up anybody on the Zoom call and shooting the bull. So
Right. Totally. In some ways it's been way easier to connect, in other ways it's been harder. But I think as someone who is extrovert who gets their energy from people, like I definitely find myself like trying to reach out. And especially with clients and members, like I'm always trying to check in, like, hey, how you doing? Like what's going on?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so let's see. We certainly have, I think, a lot of fun ground to cover. But let's maybe start with the Sarah Polacco origin story. And you can kind of start. You can start kind of wherever you want to, whatever you think might be most valuable to our conversation.
Sure. So I always love an origin story, and I feel like I have a longer version and a shorter version. I'm going to give you a medium version of mine. So, in all through growing up, like I loved playing sports. I am also a very tiny person. I'm 5'2", so it wasn't necessarily really something that I had a lot of coaches who are like, yeah, like you're going to be in sports in college and like you're going to keep on going. It was just kind of something I did because I loved it and I made my community in sports, and I think it really helped me be in my body. And so then I went to college, and I didn't play any sports in college because again, it wasn't really ever presented as an option. And I found myself like really not having community and being really almost feeling like an outsider. And that just didn't feel good. And I really, at that point, I really saw like how much movement and fitness and all this stuff was so important to me. So that was kind of one piece of the track. I still didn't really realize that I wanted to be a coach. That kind of took a little bit more time. But anxiety has also always been part of my life. And in college, it was really rough for me. That was a really bad anxiety time, coupled with this not having a community, not really having a strong like social group. I was in a rough place. And one year, I think it was like around my junior year, I signed up to do a half marathon. For anyone who knows me now, that's really funny because like I don't run at all. But at the time, I was kind of into it, and it was a good challenge. I just kind of needed something to like get myself moving, to get myself excited, like just do
Mhm.
something different, get out of the rut. And at the same time, I was also doing a form of therapy, and so I found that as I was able to increase my physical ability, I was also able to share a little bit more in therapy. And so as I, felt a little bit stronger running, I was able to, do something that was feeling really hard for me, like mentally. And I just saw this connection. And so it again just presented to me like how important physical movement is to me. And so graduated college, didn't major in any of this stuff and decided, you know what, like once I finished, I'm going to go back and get my CPT, and then never looked back. And
Mm,
that's kind of where it all started.
cool. In a somewhat similar vein, I guess I can relate, in the sense that becoming a trainer was a, let's say, post college decision.
Hmm.
Wasn't something that I followed like an official, academic track to get into. And I think if you can come at it with, how do I put it, a human first
Mm.
perspective, that is really the most important thing.
Yeah.
Um, we can all learn our anatomy, our physiology. We can all read from the textbook and the research. And all of that is super important and super fantastic. But dare I say, probably the more important thing than knowing your insertion points of your
Hmm.
muscles is what exercise can mean for people and for their mental and emotional states.
Hmm.
And that's probably the most kind of special and unique parts of our job and what we have to offer.
Yeah, I so 100% agree with that. I like that phrase that you said, the human first, because I do think that technical side is important, and there's a level of knowledge that we need to have in this industry. But I would almost rather someone have more people skills than more like scientific technical skills, because I think you're just going to be able to go farther because you're going to be able to relate to people and see what they need.
100%. a hundred
Yeah.
percent. Yeah. I mean, I can, just kind of thinking back on, when I worked at a big box gym, that was something that I had a little chip on my shoulder about a little
Mm,
bit, because I'm very much a book nerd. I'm
yeah.
very much just a geek in general. So, I was definitely guilty of that. I'm sure when I first started off, is being a little bit more anatomy first as
Mhm.
as opposed to human first. And then, when you can flip that around and you can just put the jet fuel of being a people person, being empathetic, et cetera, when you can put all of that behind just a modicum
Mhm.
of book smarts, then you're really off to the races. So that's kind of a
Absolutely.
lesson that
Yeah.
I maybe kind of learned a little bit slower than the average bear. But
I mean, I'm sure we're all learning that kind of stuff as we're going, right? I feel like, we're all just thrown into this industry a little bit, and you learn as you go.
oh yeah, yeah, there's no other way to do it, really.
Mhm.
So speaking of being thrown into the industry, tell us your history, your career history as a coach, as a trainer.
Yeah. So like I said, after college, I went and got my CPT. And then as soon as I finished that, I worked at like a very small studio. I did kettlebell classes and TRX classes. I look back at what I was teaching people with kettlebells, and I'm like, oh my God, like I can't believe that I did that. But again, you learn as you go. Like you learn better. And then I also trained people in their homes, and I only did that for about a year before I moved up to Boston. And I found Achieve Fitness, and I found Jason and Lauren. And oh my God, like they just taught me everything. Like they, like almost everything that I learned was almost like, okay, throw that out. Cause I was certified through NASM. Now, nothing wrong with a certification. You do need one to be in this industry. However, the education just doesn't stop there. You need to go so much farther. And Jason and Lauren gave me so much education. I mean, through reading, but also through my own program. They gave it through my own experience. They gave it through just like sitting down and talking with me. Like, so I just can't even say like enough good things about what they've taught me and what they've given me. And I've been there or I was there for 6.5 years. And there was only one other gym I worked for a very short amount of time when I was in Boston. Um, so really, I think my career is a little bit different than a lot of other people's, because I know the turnover is so high in this industry, and I've been insanely lucky to have worked for Achieve Fitness for so long. And for those who have not heard, Achieve Fitness decided to physically close the doors this March. So like as we're speaking, I got like 11 more days that I'm on the payroll. um, and it was, it's not easy. COVID has been a real bitch for a lot of us. But it was the right decision. And I completely kind of agree with them. Like, as much as it sucks, as much as I'm so sad to see that physical space not be a place where we can commune anymore, it does make sense. And now I am going to continue to be able to work with Jason and Lauren in the fact that they still have online platforms. So I'm going to be recording on-demand classes for them, and those are super fun. I could just get to kind of like blab at a camera without anybody talking back, and I say what comes to my head. And it's really funny. And then me and my two other coworkers, who are now my business partners, we started to do a collaborative called Between Two Kettlebells, and we're teaching online classes. And that has been kind of like a whole nother like new fun thing to discover. And it's been really fun to do with them. And then I'm doing, some stuff on my own. So I'm doing online coaching on my own, and I'm promoting my workshop and creating, trying to create more of a community that talks more about mental health in the fitness world. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and you said it. You got pretty lucky to have the opportunity to hook up with a couple of true all-stars, I think, in our industry, Jason and Lauren with Achieve. And unfortunately, I haven't met them. They actually did a one-day seminar at a gym that I was working at part-time several years ago. Unfortunately, I was out of town when they came in, so I never got to meet them. But obviously, they've made a huge impact on thousands of people through their, super amazing and engaging, content.
Yeah.
And it's just been so cool to see them and the Achieve brand, really explode. So
Totally.
it seems like if anybody is kind of poised to continue to serve people in a more online or distance type platform, it's probably you guys. So,
yeah.
and again, please go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I have so many good things to say about them, and they have so many strengths. But if one of their really, really big strengths is their ability to pivot. Like, they have had to, again, being with them for 6.5 years, I've seen them pivot like time and time again. And they're also like quick workers. So they're just like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to switch it up, and like, let's go and do it. And do it really well. And yeah, that's a great talent of them.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask, is like, what's been some of your biggest takeaways from working with them? And I think being able to pivot, obviously, as the last, year and change has showed us, is probably got to be like top in your toolbox list. And again, you were speaking of like the higher turnover in our industry, and this is a tough gig to kind of find your way, in the fitness field. And one of the toughest things is getting plugged into the right community, the right facility, the right managers and mentors. And yeah, when you have a place that is obviously so special, like Achieve, that's just fertile ground for a coach like yourself to really, obviously get your feet up under your foundations, and to kind of set you on, what is, obviously going to be a super successful career, for the foreseeable future. So that's great. So obviously their ability to pivot. I mean, I kind of, just because we're all in our little kettlebell scene, right, I kind of saw the first little, pieces of content like on Instagram. I was like, oh wow, this is great stuff. And
Mhm.
then in just no time, bam,
Mhm. Yeah.
just the numbers shoot up. And that was just really, really cool to see, because they were just obviously born hustlers executing on their, expertise. And yeah, that was super cool to see from, again, from my own little digital
Mhm.
box, to see just all that great content, come out. And I'm sure it's really just the beginning.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, yeah. So some of the other things that that learned from them. I mean, I was trying to think like as you were talking. There's so many things that I've learned from them. Um, I think one of the biggest things that I really appreciated was autonomy. So I think we talk about autonomy, like giving people autonomy in training, but I think also as a coach, they were very much like here's a guideline, here's some options, and then they would always kind of like observe and see, how would we go about it, and ask us, what are your ideas, like what are your thoughts on this, and so they very much wanted to give us a lot of autonomy and give us a say in things. And I think that speaks a lot to being able to work in a group. It speaks a lot to being able to communicate well. It speaks a lot to like not micromanaging. Like I'm such, and then for me, then as a manager, I was then able to really pass that down as well. Where I was like, I was able to kind of take a step back and observe more first and be like, okay, this isn't the way that I would do this, but I'm very curious, where are they going with this? And it would be great. And I'd be like, awesome. Like if I had stopped them and be like, no, 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 do it my way, I would have made them feel bad and I would have not learned something new. So I just learned something different by watching the way that this new coach, does this cue or teaches this thing. So that was definitely like a really, really big one for me. Yeah, so many things, but I think that that's one of the big things that really stand out for me.
Mm. Yeah, that's super cool. And makes me kind of think that the skills of being able to pivot gracefully, or as gracefully as you can, and uh, cultivate an environment that fosters support and autonomy for people to like kind of do their thing,
Mhm.
and therefore kind of help everybody,
Mhm.
is very much that. I think those two ideas can very much be applied to the coach trainee relationship as well.
Mhm. Totally.
you know
Yeah.
um because I think really a lot of times what I try to think about is like the longer that I'm working with somebody, as a coach, the more I kind of almost expect them to be autonomous in the way where it's like, giving more free reign, giving more options, and that comes in many forms. But that's really what great relationships are all about, is
Absolutely.
helping people do their thing within a certain obvious constraint, obvious
Yeah.
boundaries, and then synchronizing and really, making one and one equal three as opposed to two.
Mhm. Yeah. Well,
So yeah.
autonomy helps. It helps people, especially in that coach client relationship. It helps people learn their own bodies and their own capabilities. Which, like, at the end of the day, that's my goal. Is like I don't want to be there just to tell you what to do. I want to be there to be a guide, to be like your co-conspirator into figuring out what is best for you. And I think building autonomy in that kind of relationship also helps build that person's intrinsic motivation. So by building an intrinsic motivation, you're more likely to be consistent and then continue to get results, as opposed to me just saying, you should do this, you should do that. Um, it kind of is a little bit more. It can kind of keep people on the extrinsically motivated side. Um, and that I don't want to say that that's bad, but it is not as great of as a leader to get somebody in a more consistent routine.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. 100%. Yeah. And I would say some of my biggest, coaching breakthroughs have just come from, to some degree, maybe not like explicitly soliciting like feedback from clients in a certain way, but maybe just like throwing some different things out, seeing how they respond, and then, going intuitively in new and in different directions.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's exactly the same thing. Like the last thing I want to be is just someone who dictates
Hmm.
what you got to do, and that can be the seed of all kinds of potentially unhealthy feelings of guilt, shame. Oh, I didn't do what coach wanted me to do,
Right.
or I did exactly what coach wanted me to do and I destroyed myself in the process.
Hmm.
There's all those weird dynamics at play if you're not careful and striking the right balance with the right person.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Spot on.
Yeah. Cool. Well, all that being said, a bummer that for the time being, the physical Achieve Fitness is on its way out, but obviously glad and not surprised to see that the Achieve brand and Jason and Lauren are continuing to do good work there. So
Hmm.
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So pivoting off of that, you having the opportunity now to kind of expand and do some stuff on your own between two kettlebells,
Yes.
not to be confused with between two ferns, but I'm sure it's going to be no less entertaining. So give us the details on B2K.
Yes. So, when Jason and Lauren gave us this news, I think all of us were not surprised, but not happy. I think
Sure.
we were also like, man, I thought we were really going to be able to make it. And I think the thing that was, most one of the things that was most sad was like I work with such great people. Like I just love being able to work with the team that I have. It's again like this crazy blessing that I've been given. And as I was kind of thinking of like what's next, I was sort of like I don't want to stop working with them. Like how can we keep on going? How can we keep on doing something together? And so I kind of reached out to Ted and Emily and just was like, I know this is still really fresh, but like I would still really love to work with you guys. Let's all think about it. Let's all like process this pain a little bit and then come back and like see what we want to do. And so we did that. We processed. We all, had some good cries. And then we came back and we were like, yes, let's do it. Let's do something together. And let's continue to support the endeavors that each one of us, that everybody is doing. And we can also fill in the gaps of what someone else is doing or not doing. So we were like, let's, Achieve Fitnesses wasn't continuing to do the virtual coaching. And we were like, we have this captive audience. We had so many members that were like, what is going to happen? Are we just going to be, are we just not going to have anything? And so we were like, let's continue to do our classes. And if we can make it so that the three of us are doing this together, it's kind of, we can all lean on each other. We have, we've worked together for so long. At this point, the three of us have worked together all together for close to 5 years. So we communicate well. We have similar values. We know the practices that we've all done for so long. Like it's almost like second nature. Like Ted and Emily are almost like my arms, like, you know what I mean? And so we created Between Two Kettlebells, and our classes officially started this week. It's pretty crazy. Like once we kind of made the decision, we just went all in, and it's been going like really fast, and it's been a really fun new challenge for all of us. Like we'll be texting each other and be like, how do we do this? I don't know, let's figure it out. But like I'm having really fun like doing this with you guys. So I'm so, again, really, really grateful that I get to have this new opportunity and to do it with them.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So if someone is interested in getting their kettlebell on with you guys, is there any particular target demographic or style of class, or anything in particular that people are in for when they sign up?
Yes. So obviously we do have kettlebells because kettlebells is in our name. So our kettlebell class right now is a bit more, I don't want to say advanced, but it does kind of have an expectation that you do know a little bit about like a get up, a little bit about a swing. We are going to start adding in some more like intro classes where we're going to teach individuals. So we really want everyone who has an interest of kettlebells to feel comfortable in a class. So we don't have any kind of like expectations on people. We're there to help coach and learn, give people options. You know, if this is like new and you're like, kettlebells seem cool, I want to do this, we'll help you get there. If you're really into kettlebells, been into them for a long time, we'll give you that, that extra flair on a move too, to like keep you interested. We also do have a class that we're calling strength endurance, and that class has no equipment required. So you can go body weight, you can use kettlebells, you can use dumbbells, you can use bands. So we'll give you all the different kinds of variations. We've been now doing this for a year of these at-home classes. So we've gotten pretty good at being like, okay, you got a weight, you're doing this version. You got a band, you're doing this version. You got a, body weight, whatever. And being able to communicate with people and creating that open conversation of if you need to switch things up, we're here, let us know, we'll make it work for you. And the strength endurance classes, the first part is more focused on building strength. We'll do a little kind of like teaching segment or a focus segment, and then at the bottom it's a little bit more of an opportunity to get in some cardio, so you get a good balance in there.
Right on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, well, that's definitely what folks need. I mean, it's just quality strength and conditioning coaching. Obviously, the kettlebell scene has a lot of wacky stuff that you see on the internet. So yeah, that's super great to see. And yeah, I mean, so far from what I've seen with people from, I think there was I forget the name of the gym in Chicago that I know started a robust online class, and
Primal.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think
cool.
so, and that's just so great to see that we have. I think us in this community have something special, and I think oftentimes it doesn't get its time in the sun, so to speak, when it comes to like the virality of fun, funky things like on the internet. So it's just really great to see that coaches like yourself aren't just like throwing hands up and saying, "Oh, this kettlebell stuff is for the birds." Because yeah, I mean, in today's day and age, I would imagine that the number one piece of equipment that people are picking up for home use is probably a kettlebell.
Oh my God. I mean, they're so hard to find. I saw a few in Target the other day, and I thought about sending out a mass message because I know everyone's like, where can I get a kettlebell? Where can I get a kettlebell? So, there's clearly lots of people who are interested in a kettlebell. I mean, kettlebells are honestly my first love. Like I said, I taught kettlebell classes, even though I like cringe at what I used to teach. They're still always my first love in like teaching fitness. So I always try to come at it with like I'm never gonna make someone have to do kettlebells, but I would love it if other people love kettlebells. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm exactly the same way. It's like there's a million ways to skin the cat, and nobody has to do anything. But I also have to lean on like my zone of expertise and be like, well, if you want to check all these boxes, the way that I can help you do that best is, with these kind of select few tools. And obviously, kettlebells rank among the top there. So
Right.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Yeah. And like you said too about, there's lots of things that people post and I love to see what people come up with. I think it's almost like a form of creativity, right? These different kinds of flows or whatever. And I'm like, if that makes you happy, awesome. But what someone who is just picking up a kettlebell for the first time isn't seeing is the like million and one deadlifts that person did with the kettlebell first. The like the initial hike pass, the like dead stop swing, like all of these, little tiny baby steps that they took along the way. And so I think people forget that, it's okay to be learning and it's okay to be a beginner. And I think if anything, it's fun to be a beginner because it's new and exciting and you get all these like little exciting rewards along the way.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm even finding that it's funny, even with some of my own clients, the few that I coach in person these days. Sometimes, like, I assume, because I've been working with this one particular individual that I'm thinking of for well over 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and we started talking about the difference between a hinge and a squat. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about day one stuff here.
Yeah.
And it was just going completely over his head and blowing his mind on the difference between a hinge and a squat. And I was like, did we never go over this?
Yeah.
And he's like, no. And I was like, well, that's a huge red flag on my part, probably for just not being as tight on re-establishing and re-going over the basics like I probably should. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I think when you come at it with the right eye, like I think you probably do, like I think a lot of our colleagues do, there is always something to work on with the basics. There's always something fun to rediscover with the basics. When you can kind of take that perspective of each rep can teach you something,
Right.
and a
Absolutely.
rep doesn't have to be complex for you to to learn something.
Right. I totally agree. I think I mean the basics never get old. Like so Jason has written my program for a really long time and uh a lot of the times I would be like, I just want like the most boring program that you can write. Like, I really wasn't like, give me like something really fancy. I was like, give me a back squat, a reverse lunge, a kettlebell, like just so plain. Like sometimes I really love the boring stuff. And then every once in a while it's fun to throw something different in. And I kind of go through stages, but yeah, because you like you said every single rep you can start to focus on something new and even when you've been doing it as long as we have. I'm curious to know how long you've been doing kettlebells. I think for me it's been 7 or 8 years now. I'm when I do a Turkish get up I'll like move in a slightly different way. I'm like, oh, that was better. Like this clicks. That thing that I learned like 4 years ago, this is now clicking, and that's kind of
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, same here, just about 10 years now, been laying hands on kettlebells. And yeah, that's kind of always the goal, is every session, what have I been overlooking, what can I tweak, what can I experiment with. And again, that goes back to kind of like the autonomy conversation.
Hmm.
Is the conversation with clients is, hey, just because I teach you something once doesn't mean that like class is over. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like,
Yeah.
and sometimes I sound like a broken record when I'm just like, experiment with this, experiment with that. And
Hmm.
even people who are super advanced, that kind of has pros and cons, because sometimes people are set in their ways of doing something kind of one way.
Hmm.
And then I'll just kind of throw a monkey wrench in there and say, well, try this and let me know
Try
how it
this.
goes.
Yeah,
And
totally.
if it totally sucks, well, then at least we know.
Hmm.
But one out of every five monkey wrenches usually brings us to a new kind of golden idea that we can expand upon.
Yeah, exactly. And that again, it just makes it so much more fun. Like sometimes I think we take like fitness and also like so damn seriously. And I'm like,
Oh
we
yeah.
take ourselves so freaking seriously. I'm like, you know what, there is like enough seriousness going on in the world. Like, let's just enjoy what you're doing, have some fun with it. Like, if you're not enjoying at least part of it, then like, why are you doing it, you know? So yeah, being able to try, like, okay, I'm going to move my feet in, I'm going to move my feet out, I'm going to go with a heavier weight, I'm going to go with a lighter weight, like all that stuff is just like, it's just new and exciting, gives you a new aspect and a new way to look at movement.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 100%. Well, cool, Sarah. So let's take a little look into the future and dig into your upcoming workshop.
Yes.
So something that again, just talking about resources that we all could probably use in this day and age. I think what you've got in the works is very special. So give us a scoop on what you'll be covering later on this month in your presentation.
Yes. So I've created this presentation workshop called How to Be a Better Coach for Clients Who Have Anxiety and Depression. And so, as I had mentioned earlier, I've had anxiety my whole life. And I've become, well acquainted with anxiety and depression and how it, affects people and how a gym setting can be so helpful. And as coaches, we can play such a crucial, huge role in supporting someone. So we have such a unique relationship with people, right? Because especially when we're in times where we could go back into gyms a lot more frequently, or even virtually, we see people 2, 3, 4 times a week. So oftentimes that's more than they might see someone who they consider their best friend. So that means we get to know people really well, and we create these really strong bonds and relationships. And so what I want to do with this workshop is give people some more information on what anxiety and depression looks like in individuals, and then give people tools in order to help better assist a person through their program. So how to create better programs for an individual going through these situations, and how to create a really supportive environment. So in my kind of perfect world, I kind of think about how we as coaches have relationships with PTs, right? I can easily call up a PT. I think of like someone who's gone through an ACL tear and surgery. I can talk to that PT and talk about that client, that patient, and talk to them about what my role is in their care and in them getting better. And I can have a rough understanding of what that ACL surgery looks like what that means for their abilities and all that kind of stuff. I think that we can have a much better relationship and understanding of the mental health world as well. So I think we could have more relationships with therapists and with people in the mental health world, and I could have a better understanding of certain mental health scenarios and be able to play a part in that supportive role. Now, obviously, just as with a PT situation, I'm not diagnosing, I'm not treating. There are very clear boundaries. And I think there's the same thing in the way with mental health. With a coach, sometimes we talk about, how we like play therapists, but we don't want to be a therapist. We are something different. We are part of a support system, but we are not a therapist. So that's what I also want to talk about. There is this lane that we can be in that can be so supportive and do so much good. And at the same time, having so much potential to do good also means that we do have the potential to maybe turn someone away from the fitness world, or maybe make someone afraid to step into a gym again. And it could be something that we don't even realize that we're doing. We could have the best of intentions with someone, even just like a passing comment, that could be something that turns someone away. And I know that as so many coaches, we want to help. We want to make people feel comfortable with movement. We want to make them feel better. And so that is what I want to do, and what I'm trying to create with this workshop is give people more of an understanding and more tools so that they know how to make more people comfortable, make more people stay consistent in their workout, make more people be able to reach goals that they didn't know that they could do.
Dig it.
I get really excited talking about it.
Yeah, as well you should. Well, yeah, it's funny. My buddy Andy and I were having a conversation around this theme. He's a coach here in town, and that's like one of his big hangups. He's like, I am not a therapist. I am not a nutritionist. I am not a PT. And we were kind of talking back and forth about just kind of the weird spots that the personal trainer is in these days, where it's like there's a lot of, sometimes maybe you could say, foggy boundaries, and how we're, of how, a lot of times our clients kind of bestow upon us responsibilities that maybe we don't want or shouldn't take on. And, from the other side of it, how, maybe a lot of trainers are kind of overstepping their bounds with, some of their practices. And so these are all things to have real conversations around and about. But yeah, I mean, we're certainly here to be positive influences on people's lives. And again, we're not just talking about the anatomy book. We're talking about, real human people. But, both my mom and my sister are mental health professionals. And I know and respect the difference between, what I got going on and what they got going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. So the boundaries conversation, I freaking love boundaries. Like I love when someone gives me a boundary, because it is an immediate way for me to know, okay, this is how I support, care, be there for that person. And like, I think sometimes people get a little nervous about a boundary, but I'm like, fantastic. Like, I know this is where my line is. And so this is one thing that I do talk about in the workshop, is how as coaches we can create those boundaries, because like you said, there is a 100% difference, and we can be there as part of their support system, but there are different pieces of a support system. We are not therapists. And if we are draining ourselves, if we are bringing ourselves to a point where we're, having no energy left for ourselves, then we're also not doing our best to help individuals, So there's boundaries are not only just for you, but for the other individual as well.
Yep. 100%. Comes back to clear communication. And the importance that has around any sort of relationship that is important to you. Coach, trainee, obviously employees, managers, the whole thing, it all kind of folds into each other. And, that's another thing that, I mean, it's again, funny that you mentioned that, because Andy and I were talking about talking points for our next conversation, our next podcast that him and I do. And I was kind of asking him, I was like, well, so what would you consider was some of your mistakes, some of your newbie mistakes? And he was like, having no boundaries.
Yes,
taking
absolutely.
my work home with me. And I was like, yeah, dude, I think we can all relate to that.
Ooh, that's going to be a good podcast episode, because there are so many coaches who do that. And that's definitely something, as like in a managerial position, I've definitely talked to other coaches about, like, do not feel bad about setting a boundary. And also your boundaries are going to look different than mine. Like I might not mind someone DMing me a question on Instagram. I don't have a problem with that. Some people, that is like a no, like that is my boundary. And that's completely fine. And there's also a very friendly, non-confrontational way to reflect a boundary. It doesn't have to be like, oh my God, what have you done? How dare you? It can be like a, hey, happy to help you with this. Email me. That's the best way to contact me. There's very easy ways to lay out those boundaries in a way that works for everyone.
Hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's see. Certainly, I don't want you to spill the beans or give away the farm, but are there any sneak peeks or tactics or ideas that you can share with us, kind of as a breadcrumb from the workshop?
Yeah. So let's see. I think I in the beginning I give three big takeaways, and one of the big things that I say and I want people to remember is that we as coaches are not there to fix anyone because they are not broken. And I think as coaches, going back to kind of that anatomical mind and wanting to help, right? It's these really, really good intentions of like wanting to help and wanting to share your knowledge that people kind of look at these like nitty gritty of like, how do I fix this person? How do I make this person better? But that person, when you go in with that mindset of I want to fix you, that gives a message that this person is somehow broken and is not enough. And if we can come at the situation and come to the client looking at them of like, you are already wonderful the way you are. I am just going to help you get to your next goal. I am going to help you go where you want to go. I'm going to help educate you on the things that you want to know about, and showing them that like they already inherently have worth, are strong, are, wonderful. I think you can build such a great rapport from the beginning, and that rapport will help you get that person to their goal because they're going to be in it and invested so much more.
Hmm.
So that's one big takeaway.
Love that. Love that. That's a very important attitude for both trainer and trainee to be on the same page about, because a lot of trainers kind of have a little bit of a messiah complex.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm here to save you.
Yeah, exactly. Hmm.
And
It's
that usually doesn't work out for anybody.
Yeah, it's like we want to show people how good we are at what we do. And I get that. Like I'm very proud of myself as a coach and very proud of my abilities, but like there's a time and a place and a way that you can do that, and it doesn't have to be with your client to you don't have to make someone else lower to make you feel better and feel higher.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Well, right on, Sarah. All great stuff. Let's see. We covered a lot.
We did.
Is there anything that we didn't? Anything else you want to make mention or chat about?
Um, I think just one thing I want to add on with classes and with this workshop, there's sliding scale options for pricing. So one thing that me and my business partners, it's so cool for me to say that now, have really talked about in the past year is trying to make more opportunities for people in the fitness industry, whether it be a coach or whether it be someone who wants to get started. So we do offer a sliding scale. So for our classes, um, there's different packages. You can buy one class, a 5-pack, a 10-pack. I believe at the 10-pack, if you break it up per class, it's something like $8 a class, going up from there. And for my workshop, the price is from 40 to 120. And so we really want to, like I said, allow people to have those opportunities to come in. I also know that this year's just been, again, really hard for people. And sometimes you're like, hey, I'm having a good week, I'm making some money, and the next week you're like, shit, I don't exactly know how I'm going to pay rent this month. Yeah, so I want to give those opportunities to people.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, dig it, Sarah. You and obviously all of your colleagues are shining beacons in this industry, and it's super cool to count y'all as great colleagues. So thanks so much
Well,
for chatting, and maybe again, just in the interest of giving people next steps, call to action, what's the best way to find out more about you and what you got going on?
yeah, so I think the easiest way is my Instagram. I'm on there honestly probably way too much. So my Instagram handle is just my name. It's Sarah Polacco. And then you can sign from my Instagram. You can go to my link in the bio and go ahead and sign up for the workshop. Super easy, right through Eventbrite. If you're interested in classes, there's also a link through my bio as well, or you can go to the website between two kettlebells. It's the number two. So between the number two kettlebells.com. And you can go ahead and sign up for classes there.
Dig it. All right, Sarah, thank you again so much for chatting. All the best, and we will be chatting again real soon.
Thank you so much, Zach.
Peace.